Honeybee?
Neighbor. If I may, just for a minute, because Harry went through some very important aspect of what existed between 2012 to 2016.
Yes.
As it relates to the IMF. Very important. Now, as I've shared a number of times that I've worked in the public sector within that time, and I am familiar with the very setup of the Ministry of Finance. And I know that people take it lightly because what it will require for me to provide the receipts will expose a lot more things. And so, you know, I won't go too deep down that road. But you should not take it lightly, people who are listening, when I say to you that Edward Seaga was helping the PMP to navigate the IMF deal. I could go a little further to say that Edward Seaga was running the PMP's finance ministry between 2012 to 2016. We know that heavy for a lot of people, and but it needs to be said, and I have challenged already Peter Phillips and those who listen, who knows him, to come forward and declare to the people of Jamaica that throughout the period of that IMF deal, 2012 to 2016, Edward Philip George Seaga helped you, sir, to navigate the challenge ministry. He was very integral in Jamaica surviving that arrangement. Edward Seaga. Peter Phillips met with Edward Seaga every week for advice and other just his wisdom on how to navigate. Because remember, you know, Edward Seaga must not be counted out of Jamaica's progress, you know. He was one of Jamaica's best finance ministers. He was.
Those were the Tuesday meetings predicting?
Yes, the Tuesday meetings, some of them were on Thursdays too. And Peter Phillips, because, and the reason why I've gone there over the past couple of months, even leading a little bit up to the election, neighbor, when Mark Golding speaks, and when Julian Robinson speaks, they speak as if the PMP did something great by themselves. This thing started in 2010, October 2010, with Bruce Golding, Fiscal Accountability Framework. That bill was tabled in Parliament by the JLP. It was carried through, it continued under the PMP, and Mark Golding as Minister of Justice completed the regulations so that the bill could be operational. And when the IMF deal was struck, Peter Phillips did not know what to do, and he did not trust Omar Davies. Who did Peter Phillips trust? Edward Seaga. And I know this personally. These are meetings that I am aware of personally. And just to glue that on the back end of that brilliant presentation that Harry just made, the People's National Party, and we saw it, neighbor, how forceful they were. It's as if they were fighting to be recognized as having a part to play in what Jamaica has become. And even in that effort that they were making, they could not be honest with themselves. They could not be honest to say that fiscal accountability framework were tabled and passed in the Parliament by Bruce Golding and the JLP government, and they carried through. They could not be honest with that. And Peter Phillips did not even participate or contribute to the discussion in an honest way. Because if he did, then the PMP could not present a credible argument to the people of Jamaica as it relates to where we are today. Edward Seaga helped the PMP in their term of 2012 to 2016 to manage the finance ministry with that IMF deal. I'm going to stop right there, sir.
Wow. Honeybee?
Hello?
Good night to you. How are you doing?
Good night. I was just here and I was laughing because I cannot believe that when I heard protecting, bring up Edward Seaga, I was like, okay then. I was waiting to see who would say it because I just simply, there's so many things that would not known to the public or ordinary man. But if you're in the space, you will understand that the IMF deal was not just as it looked. And we know that there's no way. Portia Simpson Miller herself did not trust Omar Davis. Because I don't know if people remember when Omar Davis said he knew what he was doing would have cost Jamaica dearly, but it was an election time, so he said run with it.
Yes.
So with that, I remember during 2012 to 2016, when the IMF deal and we understand that we have to pan our belly anyway, even though we did not want to take the bitter medicine that Ardishaw talked to us about, we had to still take it. When I heard
When it was Andrew Holness who spoke about the bitter medicine.
No, the bitter medicine said before that.
Oh.
If I'm not, yes, it said before that. It said before that. It said in Bruce Golding time and nobody wanted that. Right? And I heard my mother was having a discussion with her people that she always talked to. And I heard she said, what you see happening here, it have the footprint of the real man. And I was like, who is the real man? But I didn't intervene in our conversation because she was talking to her age group of people, you know. And I said, who is the real man? But I decided to ask her the question just when Andrew Holness went in 2016. I said, Mommy, who is the real man? And she said, the real man is Edward Seaga. You have to understand this thing. So we said, okay, no problem. But I did not ask her what she was talking about. When I said the footprint, it was when she was saying what Protecting said about the meetings that Peter Phillips have with Edward Seaga. I said, okay, there you go. So thank you, because I did not understand when she said it had the footprint of the real man. And that's all it was. So I understand fully now, and I thank you, Protecting and Harry, for putting it out to us. And one thing where I will say to you about Mark Golding not accepting defeat.
Yes.
The problem with Mark Golding is he does not see Andrew Holness as his equal. He believes that he's above him and he shouldn't, where Andrew Holness is sitting, he should be there. And because of that, he...
Wow. We're not hearing you at all. Honeybee.
Neighbor.
Come in, Joshua.
Right. Until she works out the kinks, I want to comment also on this matter of Edward Seaga, because I think this nation has not given him the due that he should have received. Edward Seaga possesses a mastery in economic management that I don't think this country recognizes, and not just economic management, but planning procedures and strategies that is needed to move any nation forward. When we look at the footprint from all the way back to the 60s coming up of Jamaica, the building out of Jamaica's infrastructure, the 100, the 100 village, the 5-year developmental plan, creation of UDC, the creation of Ocho Rios, the creation of Montego Bay, the giving of Montego Bay the naming of a city, the creation of Portmore, the festivals, the creation of reggae music as it is, our first attendance at the World Music Festival, and on and on and on. But I want to fast forward to how we brought back the economy in 1980 after Hurricane Michael Manley handed it over to him, and brought it back from the brink of disaster. And within 3 years, Jamaica was back on track. Right? When we look at the moves that he made and bringing foreign investors to Jamaica, the meeting in Washington that led to record investments at that time, the creation of Heart for the development of young people and skills training and all of these things, the building out of the free zone sector in Jamaica at that time, the creation of Digitport, which is the first satellite in Jamaica, so that we can now have internet and cell phones that the PNP like to take credit for. All aspects of Jamaican society, that great visionary person that Edward Seaga was. And when we look at even after he lost in 1989, instead of moving on to the sunset and say, boy, let them fight, his concern was still for Jamaica. When Michael Manley decided to pursue liberalization, and he warned against the early foray into that, to say, hey, you're moving too quickly, take it step by step. And I'm just paraphrasing for those who may not be au fait with technical terms of references, but he warned, he cautioned against heading in that direction without putting the necessary guardrails in place, and how it would impact the country. We must contend that the man is a genius. In fact, since evening, while I was alone, seated in my vehicle, one of the things that I was looking at is his presentation in Parliament sometime in the 90s when he presented on the Sea Island cotton, the same thing that I spoke about earlier today. And I just realized that this man was a genius. Anywhere in the world that he was, if he was in another country that cooperated more and didn't have the stops and starts that we had, that country would be at the top of the hill right now, and he was basically behind everything in Jamaica, the dollarization, the nationalization, the financial sector, you name it. Every part of Jamaica was touched by Edward Seaga. The only part that we cannot truly say that had his footprint was the judiciary, to the best of my knowledge. But when I did the research, every sector of Jamaica's society, Edward Seaga not only had a role to play, but he had a major role in the overall creation or development or continuation of same. Right? And I think we ought to do something to honor the man. Right? One day, sometime, and PNP need to put politics aside. And it's not so much PNP, it's Mark Golding, because he lacks self-esteem, right? And these lackeys who run behind him now, the current political crop and the bloggers that run behind him, wanting to disparage, not only him, but the Jamaica Labour Party, instead of looking at what is best for Jamaica. So even as and I want to thank Harry for going down that route and protecting for continuing and Honeybee, because we cannot have the true history of Jamaica being written, right, and the development of Jamaica being written without Edward Philip George Seaga being truly in his rightful place, which in a sense, outside of Bustamante, we can truly say that he might have been the father of Jamaica's development.
Fantastic. Would you do a little bit of forecasting for me, Joshua, before you have to go. Joshua, let us assume positively that NARA passes the lower house, goes to the upper house, passes there too. The bill is approved and Jamaica starts the reconstructing. Joshua, would you position Jamaica in 4 years' time for me? What do you think we would look like?
Well, before coming on the program since night, I was also looking at another thing, which was a smart city. I don't remember which part of the world it was. And basically, a smart city is an organized city, and forecasting usage of electricity, water, etc., etc. In other words, the consumption of everything, and putting mechanisms in place to ensure that these things are done in an organized way, right, and provided for to be used in an organized way. That's the simple version of it. And as you have asked me to do in terms of forecasting, providing that the government does what they ought to do, which is to push back past the opposition if the opposition don't want to cooperate, and the howls and screams of civil society, and in some instances even the media, to get the job done. Even if we lose the next election, at least Jamaica would have benefited. And God forbid, we really don't want to, because Jamaica is dependent upon the Jamaica Labour Party. But if the government does what they should do, and what I project that they will do for the greater good of Jamaica, then what we will see is a Jamaica heading into 2030 and into the 22nd century thereof, shining like the sun and taking its rightful place in the world, which is being the beacon of the Western world, and I dare say even ahead of the United States of America. And I know that may sound optimistic, but Jamaica has so much to offer to the rest of the world. Jamaica has always led the way in so many areas, right? We have had so many firsts, even ahead of the United States. And I don't think we understand our true potential. And I believe that if NARA succeeds the way I anticipate that it should, right, then certainly we will achieve those objectives.
Okay. And Joshua, the success of Jamaica no benefit comrades as well as labor rights. So why is there obstruction?
Well, comrades don't care about Jamaica, you know. And as you rightly ask, if it doesn't benefit comrades also, it benefits all Jamaica and Jamaican, right? And, you know, when Jamaica prospers, its citizens prospers. But when the comrade prosper, the country suffers, right? And if its labor rights alone prosper, then the country also suffer. So it is incumbent upon all of us, labor rights, comrades, and no raids or peace, to look to do what is right by Jamaica and for Jamaica, right? So that not only us will benefit, but our children will benefit. And so the comrades are pushing back because they don't have that foresight and visionary outlook to understand that this is not about the JLP's legacy, though it will redound to that, right? But this is really about what Jamaica can be and ultimately will be if we pull together for the greater good. Or I will ask the PNP for one simple thing. Even if you're not willing to work alongside with the government, don't fight against it.
Let me ask you
Just
this.
keep quiet and let the government move ahead.
Yeah, Joshua, we have had other opposition parties in Jamaica and other opposition leaders. I actually grew up on opposition Jamaica Labour Party. There was one time when I thought that was included in their name, the opposition Jamaica Labour Party. When you listen to the news, that was just what you heard. I thought that they were just the perpetual opposition, never to become government. That was what the governing People's National Party, the opposition Jamaica Labour Party. Joshua, what is the difference between the opposition leaders we had, Portia, Siaga, Bruce, Andrew, and Mark Golding? Why is Mark Golding coming across as being just different? My word, different.
All right. So the difference is, though and I will start here, is that though there was a difference in ideology and approach towards the development of Jamaica, what was common is that they both wanted to see Jamaica succeed. And when I said both, I'm talking about both parties. In the case of Mark Golding it couldn't care less about Jamaica. Oh. What he wants is for Mark Golding to succeed and for his resume to say that he was prime minister. That's the difference between he and the rest of them. You know, when we look at even Michael Manley has done Jamaica many ills, right? Many of them. But I believe to a certain degree that he might have still been sincere. I can live with that, to say he might have still been sincere. I've seen violence, not heard about it. I've seen violence taking place in front of Michael Manley. I was present when it happened. But I still believe that he wanted what was best to a certain degree for Jamaica, though he also had ambition to be the leader of the Western world, at least the small islands in the Western world and the communist bloc of the West of the Caribbean. He also had such an ambition, but he still wanted prosperity, right? When we move on to PJ Patterson, to PJ Patterson. PJ Patterson, though not having a clue how to run an economy, right? And though he was the only prime minister to have put mechanisms in place that benefit him even after retirement, that his pension would be equal to the sitting prime minister, I still believe that he was not an obstructionist as Mark Golding is, right? When we looked at Portia Simpson and we look at even Peter Phillips, all of them were just different. And another thing is that they were all stately. Mark Golding has nothing stately about him, right? And say what we will about all the other leaders, none of them saw themselves as being better than the other before. So the PNP leaders didn't see themselves as being better than the Labourite leaders, and the Labourite leaders didn't see themselves as being better than the PNP. Whenever there was a national function, they all turned out, whether they were in power or not, they all coalesced behind it, you know, to support it. And whenever there was a presentation in Parliament, again, I was watching a video of Siaga's presentation in Parliament, and the opposition all supported it and banged the desk. Under Mark Golding's PNP, it doesn't matter how good the presentation is. Nobody wants to laud it or applaud it, right? So everything about this leader of the PNP says that he's focused on him and what he wants for himself, right? Even within his own party, the mechanisms that are put in place is to ensure that he safeguard his own leadership, to say that he cannot be challenged 2 years before an election. All of the leaders before him, even the year of the election, they could be challenged. And they understood that this was part of the cut and thrust of the politics. It was part of the democratic process of the party, the internal mechanisms that took place. Mark Golding amalgamated all of the agencies before, right? He started the process when he was Minister of Justice, but he was very vocal in saying that he created the Integrity Commission, right? In truth and in fact, all it was an amalgamation and changing of certain laws and rules, and to ensure that his people were represented, right? For FINSAC, in as much as it ravaged Jamaica and raped Jamaica of its resources and benefited him, Mark Golding, he was so proud of it in the beginning that he went on a mountaintop and trumpeted that he created FINSAC, and when he was advisor to the Minister of Finance. So Mark Golding is self-centered and self-absorbed. It's not about Jamaica. It's about this colonial mindset that tells him that he's better than the dark-skinned people around, and they're as disposable or as useful as much as they serve him, and once he has no more use for them, then they should be disposed of. And last but not least, we noticed leading up to the last election of the PNP, how he brought in a lot of young people because he was being flogged in the media and on social media for not including a lot of young people as part of the process. He brought in a lot of them and gave them shadow ministries, spokesperson, responsible for this, spokesperson responsible for that. And as soon as election was over, then he dropped them like hot bread. And this is what Mark Golding does. He uses people to get where he's going, and as soon as he figured that he reaches where he wants to go and he has no more use for them, he unceremoniously dropped them by the wayside. So Mark Golding, the difference between he and the others is that the others still largely care for Jamaica and the other stake here. Mark Golding's only stake is to see what he can get out of the country. Mark Golding is building low-income houses in other Caribbean islands. Yes, we have an island that is ravaged by a hurricane that needs low-income houses to supply the demands here. And he never thought of doing anything in the very country that he lives in. How can we say that he cares about Jamaica? By what metric?
Very well said, sir. Thank you so much for tonight. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.